Hi everyone, it's Katie Crysdale here from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. Welcome back to your weekly Aquatic Industry Insider. So today I was meant to be recording an interview with a colleague who had to cancel at the last minute. So I was thinking about what kind of topics I've been meaning to cover, but I haven't had the time to get around to recording. And one of the topics that I think is still fresh in my mind for summer of 2024 is still the debate around the change in the National Lifeguard certification age standard, lowering it from 16 to 15 years old. So, if you're not up to speed on what happened, the Lifesaving Society, which is a national organization here in Canada, which trains 99.9% of lifeguards at their different branches in the Canadian provinces and territories, recently lowered the age, starting first in Ontario and then moving to other provinces in the last 2 years, lowered the certification age from 16 years old to 15 years old. This was a big change for a lot of organizations, and it was not required that all organizations implement this as an employment standard, but there does seem to be a lot of confusion out there in the industry. So I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about this change and actually why I think it is such a positive step in the right direction, and where I think a lot of pools are getting caught up in the weeds and not understanding the forest for the trees. So, for context, I have a birthday in December. So, I was one of the last people in my grade, in my classes, in my friend group to turn 16. I knew I wanted to be a lifeguard for many, many years, attending an outdoor summer camp. I knew I wanted to be waterfront staff. I knew I wanted to be a lifeguard and a swim instructor when I went away to university. But because of my December birthday, it was a very long time, or it felt like a very long time before I could take my courses and be eligible to become a lifeguard. For background, after I achieved my bronze medallion and bronze cross, the summer camp that I worked at in Ontario did allow us to work waterfront under the supervision of a national lifeguard. This was back in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006. I don't know hypothetically at that point in time if it was completely kosher. I don't know if the camp was doing their own thing and it wasn't ideal. But my personal experience was as a 15-year-old bronze cross, because you had to be at least 14, a 15-year-old bronze cross working waterfront under the supervision of national lifeguards working on the docks and allowing us to work in shallow water areas, beach entry areas with different ages and different activities. And it was completely fine. We did also function as de facto lifeguards in our waterfront activities, so sailing, windsurfing, canoeing, kayaking, definitely deeper water, definitely limited vantage points. And so sometimes, history being what it is, we have a different opinion now than what we might have had at that time. So I'm not sure I agree that it was the best thing to have Bronze Cross certified people working in those waterfront activities. But that is the way we did it back in the early 2000s. Whether it was correct or incorrect, or whether philosophically training standards have changed. Fast forward to the present day, 2024. Most aquatic facilities here in Alberta have their job description written as a National Lifeguard pool standard. So most organizations that I work with, whether it is a municipal community pool, spray park, splash pad, hotel, condo, water park, all of those organizations that I work with here in Alberta, they are generally, broadly speaking, their employment standard, their job description is written for 16-year-old lifeguards as the minimum age to hire them on staff. And so the first point I want to make is where some of the confusion came in 2 years ago, or really last summer, summer 2023, when this started to be rolled out, practically speaking. There was a lot of pool operators I was talking to who were fundamentally confused about the shift in the Lifesaving Society National Lifeguard program, about what it meant to lower the program age to 15. So what it means as an affiliate, if you are a community pool that is an affiliate of the Lifesaving Society, the same way that Lakeview Aquatic Consultants is an affiliate of the Lifesaving Society, I can offer Lifesaving Society programs, I can issue Lifesaving Society credentials, under the banner of my company because I pay an administrative fee to be a licensed affiliate. What it means is that as of last year, anybody who is 15 years old on the first day of the start of a National Lifeguard course is eligible to take the National Lifeguard course. And throughout this video, I'm focused on the National Lifeguard Pool standard because that is my personal direct experience. But all of the national program standards, whether it is pool, surf, waterfront, or water park, all fall under the same overarching purview that the minimum age to take and participate in the course is 15 years old. Now, a 15-year-old may be successful in the course, whether they identify as male or female. They may have the maturity, they may have the physical skills, they may have the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to pass the course. Or some 15-year-olds may not be successful in the course for any of those same reasons that I mentioned, but it doesn't preclude them from registering and participating in the course the way it did when I was 15 and I could not enroll in a National Lifeguard course until I was at least 16 years old on the last day of the course. So where a lot of the confusion seems to have come in the last 12 to 18 months is if a 15-year-old passes the National Lifeguard course and they become a certified National Lifeguard, that does not mean you have to hire them at your facility. They are qualified as a National Lifeguard in Canada or in the branch, the province or territory where you live and work, but that does not change your organization's job description or employment requirements if they are set up to only hire people who are 16 years of age or older. Your province or territory may have employment rules regarding minimum age of work for certain types of environments. I know here in Alberta, if you hire 14-year-olds, there are certain hours of work that they are restricted to. There are certain types of equipment they cannot operate, and they must be under the supervision of somebody 18 years of age or older at certain times of day, namely evenings and weekends. So you as an organization are not required to hire 15-year-old National Lifeguards. That is a credential that you could set or a parameter you could set as part of your organization's job description, employment requirements. It may also be built into your union requirements or your health and safety policies. That is employment specific. But as of last year, anybody who's 15 years of age or older can take the National Lifeguard course. You cannot exclude someone because they are, quote, too young if they are at least 15 years old on the first day of the course. I thought this was a pretty easy distinction, but I continue to have conversations with different pool managers, different programmers, different facility operators who are not understanding the difference. You can have an organization that sets other employment requirements or occupational requirements. They may not always be bona fide necessary requirements. And I certainly know at some organizations I've worked with, there are specific requirements that have to be legal and ethical. It has to be a charter right or a bona fide occupational requirement to say something or require something. You can't just invent, I only want brunettes who are lifeguards, or I only want blondes who are lifeguards. There has to be a bona fide occupational requirement. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak to those legal parameters, but I do know those were considerations in my last two municipal pool roles. What could we actually require in terms of screening for certain skills at the intake stage of new hire? And age, you have to be very clear if a minimum age is required. So it is my understanding that the City of Calgary currently only hires lifeguards that are 18 years of age or older. I don't know why that is, but I'm sure based on their union environment and their status as a larger municipality, that they have worked with their legal team to ensure that there is a genuine reason why they require people to be at least 18 years old when they apply for employment. Outside of a big city like that, other organizations, whether you are a summer camp, a nonprofit pool, a municipal pool, a for-profit private pool, you can set your own training standards, employment standards. It may make it easier to hire people or it may make it harder to hire people, But I want to really reiterate that that shift in age from 16 to 15 is not as dramatic in the outcome, in my opinion, as some organizations have been led to believe. Speaking as somebody with a very late birthday in December, as somebody who had maturity early on in their life due to some family matters and a close death in the family, I would say at 15 years old, I was no less mature than I was at 16 years old, but that was the program standard at this time. So I want a lot of organizations, the purpose of this video is to really think about, are you disadvantaging yourself by not considering allowing 15-year-olds to apply for your positions? If you are a union environment where it is very difficult to change job descriptions or to go through an organizational restructure, I can completely understand. But for a lot of organizations, there would be tremendous value in starting a pipeline earlier on by having 15-year-old lifeguards if they are qualified, if they have the maturity, if they have the job skills, if they meet your screening standards. Hire them at 15. You will get more time out of them before they graduate high school and move on to college or university. This is the same way I have long been an advocate for the shallow water attendant program, or even now the shift in our mentality from Bronze Cross being a feeder program to National Lifeguard to Bronze Cross being an assistant lifeguard program. It does mean that people at the age of 14 can assist lifeguards in a variety of appropriate roles in a pool environment, whether that is public relations, whether that is education, whether that is helping with equipment such as life jackets and safe use of the facility, swim testing, doing wristbands on kids who are trying to swim in different parts of the facility, working in shallow water under the direction of a national lifeguard. I think this age change is a really important component in the long-term life cycle of the aquatics industry. We can get lifeguards earlier, sooner for those who are mature, qualified, and capable. It doesn't mean that every person at the age of 14 is going to be able to be a successful Bronze Cross candidate and an assistant lifeguard. I've had 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old National Lifeguard candidates who are even at those ages not qualified or capable to be strong lifeguards. So ageism is something we need to take out of the equation in the aquatics industry for lifeguards and swim instructors, in my opinion. We are definitely starting to see a shift into the quote unquote gray watch, the people on the older end of the spectrum in their 50s, 60s, 70s, who are in their second, third, fourth career, who are looking to give back to the community, to get back into an active lifestyle, who may also be very appropriate as part of our team to be a lifeguard or an assistant lifeguard. And so the point of this video is I really want to encourage every organization to really actively consider, do you need a full National Lifeguard 16-year-old or older on all basins doing all functions at your facility? Would it be appropriate in some parts of the facility, in some areas, or on some types of swims, some types of activities, to have an assistant lifeguard, a Bronze Cross, or a shallow water attendant, or a slide attendant, or an amenity attendant? I think we're casting too wide of a net if we're requiring everyone to be a national lifeguard at the age of 16 and or to be 16. Why not segregate certain parts of the facility for certain roles or functions or zones? That does require a little bit more work to manage, to schedule, to program, and to train, but it's honestly going to make that pipeline of candidates into your facility much better, and it's going to make overall the operation of the facility easier if you are very clear who needs to be doing what, where, and when, as opposed to overall, everyone needs to be a lifeguard all the time when that's not just the case. Let me know if you do something like this at your pool, if you have everyone as a national lifeguard, or if you have a mixture of different roles, different responsibilities. It may also be something as simple as junior lifeguard versus senior lifeguard. I know at one pool that I operated, this was based on hours worked. This was not based on age. So if you had worked less than 400 hours as a lifeguard, you were a junior based on experience. And if you had worked more than 400 hours at our organization, you were considered a senior. You could lead other people through the role, through the organization of the swim, the zones, the head counts, the chemicals, etc. That's it for today. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree. What are you doing at your facility? Have you seen any consequences of this shift in age, dropping the minimum from 16 down to 15? In your area, has it always been 15 outside of Canada to become a lifeguard? Or what does that look like in terms of the future of aquatics, in your opinion? Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch you in the next video.